Welcome everyone to ARTIVISM, the power of art for social transformation. Today we have with us Constance Ivana, who is an educator, community activist, an independent artist whose motto is, art heals, creating artistic opportunities that cause people to smile, reflect, and start difficult conversations. With a lifelong passion for art and education and a mission to expand artistic access, Constance Ivana uses her creative voice to tackle issues of social justice and Black history, primarily through vibrant works in spray paint and acrylics. Currently an artist in residence at Bailey Contemporary Art Center and History, Fort Lauderdale, her pieces often include messages of hope and encouragement. Constance is a regular volunteer with the City of Fort Lauderdale and has fostered collaborations with a wide range of organizations, including the Broward Center for the Performing Arts, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, Art Prevails, Art 13, Art and Soul, Heal the Planet, numerous schools, independent artists, and various non-for-profits. Beyond selling her artwork, Constance actively engages the community by hosting painting parties and workshops and creating impactful murals. Welcome, Constance.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to kind of share my story and to just, I'm hoping to inspire people today and just, get out there and provide more artistic opportunities. Okay, we can go ahead and start the slide. And I would just like to point out that my daughter helped me create this Canva template because, believe it or not, as an artist, I had not really played around with Canva much. So she definitely, she definitely helped me with that. Okay, so before you go to the next slide, that is going to be Cordelia Davis, and she's one of the students that I've been working with for almost 7 years, and she is going to introduce me, but this is just an example of what I do. I feel like it's so important for all young people to have public speaking skills. So I told her, a couple days ago, like, I need you to do this. I need you to, this is kind of what I want you to say, put it in your own words. So that next slide is Cordelia introducing me. Angie, I think because you're muted, it might not play because you're muted.
Hello, my name is Cordelia. I'm 13 years old, and I'm introducing the artist Miss Constance. Miss Constance was a teacher for 21 years and stopped teaching recently and is now recruiting. She does a lot of work in the community, and she likes to work with kids and seniors. Her motto is Art Heals, and she wants to bring as many artistic experiences to people as possible. How I met Miss Constance was when I was 6 at a community event when I was doing my dance. I had saw her stand for doing art and I wanted to do it, and then she realized that I was experienced and wanted to teach. My classes with Miss Constance was fun, and she taught me more things from the stuff that I didn't know and helped me with the stuff I did know. What art means to me is emotions and feelings, or if I have something in mind, I'll just draw it or paint it on a piece of paper or canvas. How art helped me through my life is if I was overwhelmed or something and I just wanted to do something to get it off my mind, I would draw or paint anything to express it, and that's how it helped me. I hope you find her information helpful and apply it somewhere in your life. Follow me on Instagram at artshowbycordelia_, and it's all lowercase.
Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Hello, my name is Cordelia.
Okay, so this is where everything started. So tell me my age, but I was born in 1977, and that first picture you see is my mom and my dad, both grandmas, and my godmother. And to be honest, when I think back to when art and being creative started for me, I can't even think of a time. And I would say that everyone around me has always encouraged me. So that's I'm gonna be talking a little bit about that, just the encouragement that I've had, and I think that's why I always try to encourage others. It's very important, and some of the memories that have stuck with me, and some of those impactful moments, I try to recreate them because I know what they've meant to me. So that's me and my mom on the right hand side. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Young me had some influence. I love hair bows, and so clearly my mom did too. And so you can see, especially the middle picture, you can't see the shirt, but it literally had the pink and the purple in it too. So she was definitely from the very beginning contributing to my love of color. So I definitely appreciate that. But when I look back at the pictures, it's just funny because I feel like that was just yesterday. Like I remember all of those moments. But yeah, that is me as a child. We can go to the next one, please. Okay, so the main gist of what I'm going to be discussing today is impactful moments throughout life, but mainly art moments. So what I would like for everyone to do, like as I'm describing my moments, if you've had moments, try to think of those, because when we have the open discussion at the end, I would like to talk about maybe some of your moments, even if they're not art. Like we've all gone into some type of profession, and if you're, not quite working yet, there's something that you love doing. So we all have memories, and those memories that kind of shape us are impactful moments. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about mine. And the teacher in me always wants to share knowledge, techniques, things like that. So there's a couple videos in here that hopefully, if you haven't learned these techniques or heard of these things, you'll learn them during the course of this call, and you can either use them yourself or you can share them with others. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is a picture of me and my grandmother a long time ago, and that is the house where I grew up. That's the childhood house I grew up in. And my mom's mom was named Emma, and we lived on Willamette Court. So just to give a quick background of Willamette Court, that's also, I love history as well as art. So I always thought it was really cool to know who Miss Willamette was. She was actually my next door neighbor. So the neighborhood I lived in was called Goins Manor, and Mr. Goins was still living when we moved there. And Miss Willamette was my next door neighbor. So that was always like one of those moments. I guess that could be, it had nothing to do with art, but it was another impactful moment because I used to sit at her house sometimes after school, and she would just share history about the area and just talk about when she was a child, and sometimes answer questions about homework. And I think that that's one of the things missing now, our seniors and our youth engaging and kind of bridging that gap and gaining a better understanding. So I just really appreciate that. But her and my grandma were good friends, so that kind of helped with that relationship. But I'm just going to first talk about one of my earliest childhood memories, and I'm calling it Sunday Funny Pages, and I'll explain why on the next slide. Okay, so my grandma, every Sunday, she used to, and I'm kind of dating myself again, but the Sunday paper used to come in several parts, and there was a separate part of the paper that was all wrapped up nicely in plastic, and it had ads in it, so your coupons, your comic strips. Used to have a TV guide in there. I like to look through the TV guide. But my grandma used to give me that section of the newspaper while she read the other parts of it. And reflecting back on it, not only was it a good memory, but it was very smart of her to give me that, because it got me away from TV, and everything that I was interacting with, I had to read it. So that was educational, and it probably helped my reading, because I probably started looking through that when I was like 6. So she called it the funny papers. So that's kind of what I grew up calling it. But what I would do is I would, read the comics, but then I would always pick a picture, and I would take that picture and cut it out. And this is before color printers. So that was another thing, being able to get the comic strips out of the Sunday paper, you had pictures in color. Like you didn't just go to your printer and just, print out on the laser printer. So it was kind of nice to have pictures in color. And I used to watch a lot of different educational shows, and I cannot remember where I saw the grid method, but someone was showing this grid method on how to transfer pictures, and you can draw anything. So I kind of combined my grandmother giving me the Sunday funnies along with this grid method, and it just became a routine for us. And we would literally spend hours together where she would be reading the paper or doing whatever she was doing, and I would have my section of the paper and I'm cutting it up and just like making a piece of artwork. And it was one of those things. My grandma wasn't really like overly affectionate or, like, oh, wow, that looks awesome, like, great job. But it was just, I could tell by the way she looked at me or kind of glanced over at the picture. And, sometimes I would give it to her and she would, put it somewhere in her room. So I knew that it was just encouraging. Like it was always, positive energy. And the fact that she would continuously give me the paper, it was a really good feeling. So in this next slide, before we go to it, it's just a picture. That's okay. We can actually go to the next one. So if you were to do this activity, and this will be posted later, so you can always go back and do it. But if you were to do this activity using the grid method, these are the things that you would need. And that's another thing about my grandma. She was very resourceful. Actually, both of my grandmas were. And I really learned a lot about using what you have. So there was never this need to be like, oh, I need to go out and buy this and have that. Like, just look around the house and find things and create, with those things and explore with those things. So for this activity, you just need whatever picture you're going to use, a sheet of paper. I love cardstock. Like, I don't know if anyone's used Bristol board, but I'm just like, that's my favorite, probably one of my favorite mediums. You need a pencil, a pen, a ruler, and scissors. So the next one is going to be a short video, just kind of explaining how you can use the grid method.
Garfield was definitely one of my favorite comics growing up. He had the show, and he was definitely one of the cartoons that was always featured in the Sunday paper. So one of the first things you need to do to start this grid method is make sure your dimensions are exact. So this picture is 8 by 5, and I'm just going to draw the lines so that I have the square inch grid. So that will make it easier when I get ready to start transferring the picture. So here's what the picture looks like once the grid is completely finished. Okay, so once you have your grid drawn on the picture, now you have to create a grid to transfer the picture to. So I chose to make this a little bit larger. So the grid on the picture is square inches, and I made this 1.5 inches. So a little bit of math required, but I'm just going to go ahead and draw the grid out on this paper, and then I'm going to cut around the edges so that this looks just like the actual picture. So here are my picture and my grid side by side. Okay, here comes the fun part. Now you're going to actually use the grid to start drawing your picture. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can draw the picture looking at each box individually, or you can just start drawing your picture and use the grid in the boxes to kind of determine how large things are. So how wide are the eyes? Okay, let's see how many boxes the body covers. So I found this very useful when I was first learning how to draw, and you can see that it's definitely a process. So that's where I first started, and here's the picture completely drawn. I went ahead and I outlined it in black, and then I went over it again with a little bit thicker marker, but this is definitely something that I enjoy doing. And once you have your whole picture in its outline, you can erase the lines and you can color it in. There's so many different things that you can do with this, but I definitely love this method.
Okay, so I oftentimes use that with younger students because sometimes it gets so frustrating when they want to draw this thing exactly the way it looks there. So this grid method definitely helps with beginners, and it's just a cool way you can use it on a wall. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite methods. We can go to the next slide. Okay, the torpedo factory. So I grew up in Fairfax, Virginia. And the torpedo factory is located in Old Town Alexandria. So this is one of my like favorite childhood memories. And as the intro said, one of the residencies that I have is at History Fort Lauderdale. So History Fort Lauderdale is a museum here, and actually been turned into like an artist residency. There's currently 5 different artists up there right now, and played. It's supposed to be a working studio, and we give tours, and so it just kind of combines history and art. And the reason that resonates with me is because that's what the torpedo factory is. So the torpedo factory was built after World War I, and for about 6 years they were in the process of manufacturing torpedoes. And once that was no longer needed, it was used for administrative government buildings. But after about 50 years of it, being used for that, someone had the bright idea, like, let's take this space and turn it into an artist co-op. So they preserve part of it. So when you go into this building, it literally looks like a museum, and you see the first picture where I'm standing here. So that green torpedo was one of the famous torpedoes. I can't remember exactly what number, because they number all of them. I'm not that technical, but I just say the green one. So the green torpedo was the one that they manufactured the most. But when you walk through, especially the first level of the torpedo factory, it has all the history. But there are up to 71 artists at any given time, where they've taken all the different rooms of this building and allowed artists to rent them out. So they have glass windows, like you literally can walk through, even if the artist is not there, you can see what they're working on. There's special events and everything. And as far as impactful moments, I was first introduced to the torpedo factory on a 5th grade field trip. And you'll see in my notes later, I was pretty short until 9th grade. So vertically challenged, couldn't really see. And we went on this field trip, and I was so disappointed because I kept like being in the back. Like every time we would go in to hear an artist speak, I was in the back and I couldn't see, I couldn't hear. And like I said before, my mom was always so supportive. So she took me back down to the torpedo factory, and one of the artists that I really wanted to see, because her name was also Connie, she was just so receptive, and she was so nice to me. And that's an impactful moment. It's always stuck with me because she just spoke to me and encouraged me. She gave me this little canvas, and I cannot, I've moved so many times, I'm not sure where the canvas is. It pops up every now and then. I'm like, oh, look, there's the canvas. But it just really meant something to me. And that's one of the reasons I try to, especially when I see kids interested in art, I try to give them something, like something to encourage them, something to kind of remember me by, like this is a positive moment. So I just go through some of these pictures. So you can go ahead to the next slide, please. Okay, so the torpedo factory, it sits right on the Potomac River, and it's on the Virginia side, so it's Old Town Alexandria. But the cool thing, and this is literally what I've been doing since I've been about, probably about 19 or 20. Like I go down there even by myself, because sometimes people are like, I'm ready to go, my feet hurt. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna make this a day by myself. But it's right next to National Harbor, which is Maryland. And then you can also see the monuments in DC. So there's a boat that takes you to all 3 locations. They literally, they say the tri-state area, but DMV for DC, Maryland, Virginia, they literally converge at this point. So I was just up there. I was actually working on a mural last November. So some of these pictures are from that trip, but when you look at the sunset, it's just amazing. And for me, it's just like being able to slow down long enough to see things like this. I could not share these pictures. And the one in the middle is me standing next to another torpedo, not as famous. It's not green, it's just silver. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so more pictures from the first one is the Carlisle House. So another history fact, it was occupied. It was an occupied home, and during the war, the Confederate soldiers took over this home and made it into their military hospital. And in addition to doing regular tours, I also like to do ghost tours. So apparently a lot of activity was happening at this house just because it was a hospital. A lot of soldiers died. And so I would take pictures right there because the history is just really amazing. Downtown Alexandria has done a great job preserving things. So if anyone's in that area, or if you have an opportunity to visit, definitely check out Old Town Alexandria. This is National Harbor, so that's the Maryland side. And when I visited last year, it was right around Christmas, so there's a big Christmas tree, but it's just fun. And from like a visual perspective and just like looking at all the different, like when you walk up there, they have murals on the side, they have mosaic artists that have done things. Alexandria is really, really big on art. So public art is everywhere. So you can't walk around without seeing a new installation. Like every time I go back, I see something new. So really enjoy that area. Okay, next slide. Okay, we can skip that one. I was just talking about it. I was short and I couldn't see. Okay, and that's just some information where people can go back and you can, I think it's just torpedofactory.com if anyone wants to look up more information about it, but we can skip that one too. Okay, visits to the Smithsonian. So this is another fond memory of mine, another impactful moment. Some of my first Smithsonian experiences, I don't even think I was in first grade yet. My mom would take me to the Smithsonian. She would always find these fun activities to do, whether it was about books or some type of sensory something where we went to feel something or learn about dinosaurs. And so I definitely tried to pass that on to my kids. I was a teacher for 21 years, and I think I enjoyed the field trips more than the kids. So when I had kids, I would always try to sign up for the field trips because I could just go and have fun. It's like, let me take a day off work and have fun. So that middle picture is my younger daughter and some of the people in her group. But we were at the Smithsonian, and that's us having fun. I always make everyone who's in my group take selfies. I'm like, we're taking selfies. So that's several years ago now. She's a sophomore in high school, so that's quite a while ago. But other pictures down by the Smithsonian, the first one by the Metro, and then the second one, that's for my last trip, and you can see the Washington Monument in the background. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so that's, and the Smithsonian has several different buildings. That's one of the main buildings, but I just realized like how blessed I was to be that close to DC, and the fact that my mom encouraged me, and literally, you know, she's probably the reason why I love history so much and why I love art, and just, I just appreciate. So definitely impactful moment. And when we go back up north, there's been times where we can't even like really stop, but I drive through and we literally run on the mall. There's been times like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'll just take a picture with like the Washington Monument and Smithsonian in the background. I'm like, we have to stop by. It's just definitely an impactful moment, and I've passed that on to my daughters. So you know, I'm happy about that. And also with some of my students, you know, I've taken them. I had a student one time that she needed to make up some history work or something, and she was just kind of struggling in school. I was a special education teacher for 13 of the years that I taught. And so I came up with like kind of an alternative curriculum, and there was an exhibit in the Natural History Museum. And so I was able to take her down to the Natural History Museum, and we made some videos, and I had her just like write a little report, and that replaced some of the work that she was missing. And we didn't have to go and do all the textbook stuff. So I'm like, we can read the boring textbook, or we can go learn about it, you know, up close and personal. And, you know, and I'll talk a little bit about, you know, art and education, but there's so many other ways to show that you have learned information, that you're retaining it, you're able to apply it. So yeah, Smithsonian has just provided lots of memories. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we can skip that too. Okay, art in the classroom. And I was gonna add more pictures, but I just, you know, I talk a lot, and so I'm like, I have to stay within my time. Okay, so art in the classroom. I have been an English teacher for most of the time, but at any given time when people walk in my room, they're like, is this English? Because of course you can be creative with English. Like we're not gonna just read, we're not gonna just write, especially when students have a deficit in that area. I'm not gonna remind you every day that we're working on it. I'm not gonna remind you that that's a struggle for you. So for me, this is more about making impactful moments rather than my own. I've had students come to me and just, you know, thank me later because English was so like daunting to them. Because when it's pointed out that you can't read well every day, like who wants to go to that class? Like I wouldn't want to go to that class either. And if I'm able to read something aloud and you're drawing a picture based on some questions I'm asking, or where we use colors, underline, circle, just doing things creative. Art in the classroom is definitely, okay, next slide, please. Okay, dealing with anxiety. I do not think that there's anyone during the pandemic. And I was still teaching when the pandemic first started, and dealing with my own anxiety as well as my students. There were so many different methods that we had to come up with. And one of them that I used to do with my students was line drawing, because sometimes you don't realize that when you're overthinking, when you're anxious about something, if you're angry, frustrated, like, our minds can only do so many things at one time. I know we say we multitask, but as far as worrying or anxiety, there's only so many emotions that you can actually have at the same time and actually think about them while you're doing something else. So I created a video for this one also, but and this is definitely something that everybody should try. So I think everyone knows what a basic line drawing is, but this one is abstract. So you're really taking all of the thinking out of it, and you're literally putting your pen down, and you're going to try to cover as much space on the paper as you can. But the objective is to make sure that after you finish doing that, your pen stops where it starts. So if you're doing that, and sometimes it might take 5 pictures to cool down or to stop stressing or whatever it is, but if you're focusing, you can't worry. It's almost impossible to have the same worry while you're doing this activity. Don't believe me? Try it. I'm 47 and I still do it on a regular basis. So sometimes I look at my notes for work and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm still over here doodling. So on the next slide, it will show the process. We'll actually show you what you need first. So go to the next slide, please. Another very basic,
This is definitely one of my favorite activities. So this is the abstract line drawing activity, and the objective is to start and stop at the same place. So this first one, you just kind of make swirls all around your paper. You want to make sure that you're using all the space, and if you look, you see how there's closed in spaces. You definitely want to make sure that you are creating some of the spaces that are closed in, because that is what you're going to go back and color. But if you are having a stressful moment, if you're having trouble focusing, it's been a hard day, maybe there's somebody that you're trying to avoid saying something to. This activity will definitely help you with that. So you can see that I ended in the same place that I started. So that was the curvy line drawing, and this is the straight line drawing. So you can use a ruler, or you can use like a piece of paper folded in half, or some type of object with a straight edge, but it's the same concept. And you're going to just fill up the paper with these lines, and it's going to all connect, and it should end in the same place that it started. There's no right or wrong way to do this. And you can use a thin marker, you can use a thicker marker, but you're going to just make lines that cover the entire paper. And like I said, this is definitely a way to de-stress. So this is what they look like when they're finished. You don't have to create them and color them all in the same sitting. Sometimes I create these and I go back and color them later. And you can look at the ones that I've colored and I've embellished them a little bit, but this is definitely a method for all ages. Abstract line drawing, definitely got to try it.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, art within the community. So I have so many impactful moments that have happened within the community. That's definitely my passion. Just giving back. And sometimes, you might be having a bad day and you don't really realize what other people are dealing with. And when you all come together with the purpose of creating something, and everyone is sitting around talking, and you just, you're collaborating, it puts things in perspective. And it's just one of those things where coming together from all these different backgrounds, and then having an end product that beautifies the community or the area or inside the building, wherever you are, that's always so satisfying to me, because not only are you creating great art, but I would say that some of my strongest friendships have been built within the community, just working side by side with people, because, that saying, birds of a feather, flock together. It's like working side by side with other people who are just as passionate about giving back it's just, it does something. And so when you have those people come together, it just, yes. So I could talk about that forever. I definitely have some pictures of some of the murals and different things that I've created. But yes, and there's a couple people that I see on this call that I have worked with. And I definitely appreciate my artist friends. I love everybody, but I think as artists, you have to kind of think differently. And so it's nice to be around people who think similarly. Sometimes when I'm at work, you know, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm kind of thinking way off over here, or, you know, maybe you're just talking to neighbors and it's kind of like, okay, maybe my idea was way out there, but it's nice to work shoulder in shoulder with people who have the same thoughts as you. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so this first picture, that's actually up in Virginia, the one with the peace sign, and that was done in a juvenile detention center. And I really enjoyed that project because I got to work with some of the students. So I wasn't allowed to use their pictures, but they were on the brink of being in trouble where they might have to take a little trip, but they weren't quite there yet. And they had to, you know, take some visits and talk with people on the weekend. And so I was able to work with them. But what I always try to do when I'm working with young people is just make sure that, you know, this is a safe space. Like, I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure why you're here, but let's just create something together. And you can kind of see them relax after a while. So I really enjoyed that project. I enjoyed the final product. And it's just nice to know that you have something to do with beautifying an area and then providing kids with an opportunity. And that middle picture, that was the Boys and Girls Club. So that was actually a collaborative piece. And that's me kind of putting the outline. And they partnered with, I want to say it was Home Depot. And so there were some volunteers from Home Depot when they came in, and I handed everyone their color and they had to kind of fill in. So it was almost like a coloring book. But yeah, that was also a fun project. And then the one on the side, that is a mural that I was painting. And I used to, I won't say, excuse me, I won't say that I was afraid of heights, but after you fall off a ladder a couple times, I think you kind of become a daredevil. I'm like, okay, so I just have, you know, a bunch of lies. My daughters look at me like, really, mom? So does my mom. My mom's always like, you know, are you on a ladder again? But now it just feels like second nature, like climbing all the way to the top of a, you know, 12-foot ladder. It's like, it's nothing. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, those are some more murals that I've done. I definitely like to use bright colors. I feel like they grab people's attention. And, you know, some murals are like directly on the street. So the one that you see farthest to the right, that one was actually kind of scary to paint because on the other side of that grass is actually a very busy street in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So it's loud. So you just never know. Like sometimes I turn around like, okay, is someone gonna like drive off the road? Are they not paying attention? But it's really nice when you paint the murals and people start taking pictures, you know, with them and tagging you in them. It just kind of creates even more. Like I've made friends with people just tagging me or just reaching out based on a mural that, you know, has my name on it. So that's always a great feeling too. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and this is another form of community art that I do. So those are all individual squares. So I painted the like the black, that's for Dania Beach, that's a city down here. So I painted the black and then the rainbow colors, and then the participants all painted a square. So I literally, you know, as people are painting them, and then that's what the end product looks like. So I just think that that's really awesome because when you look up close at some of those paintings, they're amazing. But then they all come together to kind of make a group project. So I really enjoy doing that activity. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so passing the torch. So the next slide is going to have a video, and this just kind of speaks to how I function. So if someone tells me like, oh, I have this young person that I want you to meet, or you know, someone is trying to do blah, blah, blah with art, or they want to know about shows or whatever it is. I know how that is. And it's very hard when you're trying to get into a field or trying to find information out and people are really like tight-lipped about it and you can't really figure things out. So anytime anyone puts a young person who is trying to do art in my direction, I'm going to do whatever I can. And having the 2 residencies, I really plan on giving as many young people a platform as possible, because I think that that's what everyone should do, regardless of your profession. It doesn't have to just be art. Whatever profession you go into, you should always be trying to reach back and see how you can help that next generation. Okay, next slide, please.
Hi, I'm Emma. I am a sophomore at FIU, and I am majoring in psychology and minoring in art. I have met Constance through a mutual friend, and once I got to know her, we've been just collaborating since. My art pieces are currently hanging out right alongside hers in the Fort Lauderdale Museum, and I'm really fortunate to have this opportunity with her.
Yeah, and I just look at certain things, and it's like, when you have a platform or you have a space, it doesn't cost you anything to share it. It doesn't cost you anything to encourage anybody. So I just really, I measure my success on how many people I'm bringing art to. Like, my motto is art heals, but it goes deeper than that. So I just feel like, each day, each opportunity I'm given, I just try to reach out to as many people as possible, because she appreciates this. Cordelia, you guys met her, so I'm hoping that in like 10 years they're telling me about young people that they've helped, just so we can kind of keep the cycle going. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so wrapping everything up, I hope that the 2 activities that I showed you, I hope that everyone tries those if you've never done them before, because trust me, they're fun. And, especially the second one is definitely beneficial, just to kind of, even if it's just taking a second, even if everything is good and you just want to break, both of those activities definitely can be helpful. And I just want to challenge everyone to find at least 5 people that you can create impactful moments for. And I'm sure that everyone here has done that. So I'm just going to say, keep doing that. So yeah, just keep impacting people's lives, and realize that even if they don't tell you, because that happens a lot, like sometimes we don't realize the difference that we're making. So even if people don't tell you what a difference you're making, you're probably making a big difference. So just keep doing that. Okay, next slide, please. And I think we can skip through. I have some of my biography. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay, and I just want to thank the ARTIVISM staff. Like, I really appreciate this opportunity and giving me the platform to share my story. And my daughter, who created that Canva template for me and saved me a lot of time, and I learned something, because I'm recognizing, like, as an artist, I should do much better with the computer side of things, dealing with being creative. So I appreciate that. And then Cordelia did the introduction, Emma had a reflection, and then my mom sent me most of those pictures. And thank you everyone for joining today. I definitely appreciate, the engagement. And I think that that's the end of my slides, but I think we're going to have like a question and answer session.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Constance, for this wonderful presentation. Before we do move on to the Q&A, I'd like to just share that next Monday, October 28th, author Sherry Ann Lewitt will present How the CIA Created American Literature. For more information on this and all the series, past and incoming events, please go to the website www.adelphi.edu/artivism, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram at ARTIVISM with the number 4, Share Humanity. Also, if you'd like to get involved in this ongoing initiative, please just email us, reach out. Now, this is the moment when all of you are welcome to share your thoughts and your inspirational moments in the Q&A section. Thank you.
Oh, I just thought this was so beautiful, Constance. I like how you glow when you speak about your mother and your grandmothers. I too grew up with my grandmother. I treasure her. And I think I'm a good grandma to my granddaughters. All that is so important, and it's not something we really see that much anymore. I wanted to say I doodle all the time. Well, lots of lines.
Right.
I have a blank desk pad where I write my notes, but I can never find them because I'm doodling all over them.
Right.
My advice is, maybe draw a line someplace, keep your notes on one side and your doodles far from.
Right.
Yeah,
Mine mixed together too.
yeah. Trying to search where is that date and circles and doodles and such. Thank you so
Right.
much. Any
Oh,
other
you're welcome.
comments or let's see. Yes, heartwarming. Mary says that, the colors on the slides. I love your community work. Very
Thank you.
beautiful. Very, and
Definitely appreciate it.
it's the Sunday comics. I mean, those were the sections my dad used to give us on Sundays, we would all have to read a part, something from the newspaper. He would get the Newsday and the Daily News every day. English was not his first language, but he made sure my sister, brother, and I read something from the news every day. And as a bonus, come Sunday, we got the comics. And what we used to do was a silly putty. If you press down,
Oh, right. I remember that.
yeah. And the other thing is the transfer. What I did with the students in some of my other classes, whatever level they were, I used to have them draw, like make a copy of whatever they wanted to draw out, and on the back of that use, chalk. Chalk in the color of whatever was going to be a
Okay.
dominant color, and then just trace over that, and you could kind of like use that to, render it or
Right.
and then that was again, then it was always, but that's copying. No, it's not copying. It's
It's
your
definitely not.
hand. It's yes. Yeah,
And if you're a creative person, like even like
exactly.
I think you're unable to copy because you're not going to leave it just like that. Like you're gonna even if you borrow an idea, you're gonna do something else with it. So it's always funny to me when people are like, "Oh, you stole my idea," and it's like, do you really think in 2024 you're the first person that that actually did that?
That's right. That's right.
I just wanted to speak, Constance, on the fact you were saying that you were big on family, and being from Columbia, South Carolina, from the South, family that's really the basis. And I was the alien in a lot of my classes just because while a lot of people, in the South, especially in South Carolina, want to be in football, you want to be in sports, you run a track. I was in manga books, comics, so I was constantly taking inspiration while people were looking up to, like Michael Vick and stuff. I was looking at Jonathan Green and all his artwork,
Right.
because that was a big inspiration. So you talking about finding the things that you need reminded me of the memory back in elementary school where I, I used to get in trouble taking all the printer paper just so I can make my own sketchbooks at the house.
Right.
So I would make staples and everything and make these things at home. So it really touched it. You really touched a personal spot.
Right.
So I really want to say I appreciate you for this.
No problem. And that's a true artist because I remember those days too. And I'm trying to remember where I got my paper. I know that because paper wasn't like it is now. So you did have to take it from somewhere. But I used to like staple the edges and then put like glue a piece of paper over the staple. So it was like a binding. And I'm like, oh, this is my sketchbook. Like I'm definitely doing it now. But just so you know, my family's from Sumter and Rock Hill. So, yep. South Carolina.
All right. Yeah, see, always home, baby.
Right.
We have a comment on the chat from Symphony. It says, "Thank you for this, Connie. I think my most impactful moment was not being able to do art the way that I like making it, and come to the conclusion that art truly was my calling."
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you're not making art for other people. You're making it for yourself, and somebody it will resonate with somebody. So just keep creating.
Yes. I see here also Laura Sue. She's saying, "Most impactful moment, I grew up playing music with my family and in school band, orchestra, etc., and attending many concerts, musicals, etc. But the first time I saw all women's band right after I graduated from college, it was a turning point. And the key event that allowed me to believe I would be a professional musician like the others I saw, and to pursue doing that myself, even though I had already played and studied music most of my life up to that point." Yeah.
Right. it's, you know, the things that we see, they definitely impact us. And, you know, and it's like those things that are positive and they inspire us. It's just kind of like, yeah, gotta just go with it.
A lot going on in the chat. Also, Vicky says, Connie, you touched the personal spot for me too. I reflected back memories that I have not thought about in a long time.
Right. I like, sometimes like, oh, I'm not saying how old I am. I don't mind doing that because, you know, I really, really enjoyed my childhood. So I talk about it every opportunity I get. And I just very appreciative of the time that I grew up in. You know, because I feel like it's a good combination of the old school ways and, you know, we've kind of progressed now, but I definitely appreciate, I remember, you know, you just hop on your bike early on Saturday morning and you have maybe a snack pack and you just ride out and, you know, tell your parents, I'll be back, you know, can't really do that anymore.
No.
And Mary also said you have a wealth of information teaching, and especially with special needs students and those with in juvenile detention. That's incredible. I mean, at such young ages to be in juvenile detention, what do they do with them? I mean, where do they go from there? You know, it becomes this revolving door, and you know, people like you who inspire them and show them, you know, a way to be creative and to channel whatever they're going through in a creative way. I'm sure you make a huge difference.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, and there was a little moment. I will be very truthful. I'm very defensive of children. I feel like, especially when they don't have a voice. And I remember when I first got to the detention center, there was a boy who was there early. Like I had, you know, gotten there and he was just sitting quietly and just waiting. And I didn't realize that he was going to be one of the ones helping me. And I needed to hang some stuff up to black out the windows because I was going to be projecting. And he was right on it. Oh, yes, ma'am. You know, no, ma'am. Just very polite. And he was helping me. And he had been helping me for about 20 minutes. And I guess it was a social worker or something who works with him. She wasn't working with him for the day, but she just happened to walk by. And she comes over and she's speaking to him, not me. She's like, what are you doing? You know, he's like, oh, you know, I'm helping with art today and I'm, you know, working. And she was like, you're not an artist. Like, what are you going to paint? Like, I just immediately, anyone who knows me, like, oh, we're not going to do that today. And I literally addressed her and I was like, oh, well, have you seen him paint? Well, he's going to paint today. And I'm sure it's going to be amazing because he's been very polite and, you know, nothing but helpful today. So, yep. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to keep working. Like I literally talked her away. Like I kept talking until she walked away and I could see the smile on his face. And for me, I think those moments are important too, because, and it doesn't just have to be young people, anyone who doesn't have a voice in the moment. I feel like that's important to do that for them so that they understand, like someone sees you, someone sees what's happening and we're not doing that. And he ended up being one of the best painters, followed directions exactly. And I really don't know what caused him to get in trouble or why he was there. But I think that if we would sometimes even the playing field more and really get to know people and understand like what's going on, it would make a huge difference. And so that's what I've tried to do in my classroom as well. Like sometimes I would have more than 30 kids in my room because they're like, oh, let me just stay one more period. And I'm like, I need you to go to your next class. Like, you can't, well, no, they said it was okay. I went and I checked in. I'm like, there's no seats. So, yeah, that used to always be. Right, yeah, the social worker, definitely. And you know what? And it was funny because I was there for that project for probably like 3 or 4 more days. And I went back and did another project. And when I was there the second time, she didn't really even speak to me. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm okay with that because you're not a very nice person. And you probably shouldn't be in this profession, but it's another story.
It's really amazing that she could have put that kid down, and being a social worker, she should have known better.
Right. And it makes you wonder why people go into that profession or that type of profession and why they stay there. And I found myself in education a lot of times undoing things that other people were doing, either with words or actions. And kids are so impressionable, you know, and it's like I've talked about so many positive memories, but I've had some negative ones too, like we all have. And so I just think that some of those things can be avoided. And it's like, just, yeah, don't do that because creates, and I'm trying to remember, I don't know if anyone knows the statistic, but I think is it 10? You have to do 10 positive things to kind of erase or negate one. I'm trying to remember 10 positive things for every negative. I can't remember what it is. But I know that it's imbalanced. So you have to do a lot to, to get rid of that negative memory. Does anyone like have any ideas on things that they're gonna do? Like did anyone hear anything today? They're kind of like, oh yeah, I've done that before. Maybe I should do this. Or is anyone gonna share either of the two activities with somebody?
I have an impactful moment if I could share for sure.
Okay.
The first person that came into my mind was my art teacher, Miss Rosalind Coquilin. She still teaches at HB Rain to this day. One of the greatest human beings that I ever came across, because for the longest I tried to fit into the crowd, but I always channeled my emotions through art. That's always what I did. She was the first lady that put me into an art competition. She introduced me into so many different styles. And I was a history nerd, just like I was. History and science was one of my favorite subjects. So I didn't realize that art was had a huge connection with history to the point where it shows different cultures. And I just love that she really helped me see that at such a young age. So I'm learning about Zulu, Western African art, descendants from Gullah Geechee accents, and also derivatives of all over. And she sat me down to help me realize, like, this is what art really is. And I would say to this now, I would not be the motion graphics designer I am now here in news without her. So that's one of the main things. And also she helped me personify my music love as well. So when you was talking about teaching, I used to be an art teacher and a coach. So I understand how it feels to see somebody talk a child down and you're like, you don't know how bad that kid, what their day was, and you don't know how they're going to carry that. So that touched me personally in a way. So I'm in news now, but I talk to my baby still, even now. And making that impact. So it's funny that I was talking to one of my coworkers today and just talking about how we can reach back and talk to the kids. So what you're doing, you're really doing some superhero work, and never sell that short. No, you really are.
I appreciate it.
Because it was one day when I came here to the news direction. It was an elementary school that came in. And I got a little emotional because I was talking to the kids, just talking normal. And one of the children was drawing in his sketchbook. And I just asked him, like, what are you doing? And he was drawing anime sketches just like I was. It seemed like I was talking to my younger self. And so it was kind of like I tried to keep tears in because it's like, talk to my young self right now. I can't believe this. So it's like, it was a very big moment, but also I saw his eyes light up. Like, no, I did exactly what you did. And he had a smile on his face where it's like, you could be in this seat one day if you work hard. So.
And if we found him today and talked to him, he probably remembers that moment. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like creating those moments and not just saying, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to talk to them, or oh, I'm not going to encourage, or, it's like, just, even if it's just quickly, it means so much. And if more people did that, I just think that our young people would be in a different place.
I just try to do what I can. I always say, like, I'm usually the youngin in the room because I'm still in my 20s. I'm still trying to figure things out as we're going along. But I always try. My mom and pops always instilled in me, make an impact no matter where you are. So I always try to do what I can.
And once you have that in you, it's everywhere. Like I've had, people used to laugh at me because I would keep like 4 or 5 jobs at a time. Like I don't know. I didn't believe in like idle time. I've never sat still. People are always like, sit down somewhere. Like I don't even know what that means. Like I don't think I've ever known what that means. But yeah, once you have that in you, it'll always be there. So regardless of what you do, and I can just tell based on, you know, what you're describing, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, you're going to always find somebody to encourage, to inspire, to share your story with. And to me, that's just the best way to be.
I think Vicky had a question.
I just wanted to say that wisdom surpasses age. And that, yeah, because you talk and you do older than you are.
Thank you. You know, it's funny you say that, because sometimes I feel much older. Like, when I was talking about Miss Willa May, I must have been, I don't know, like 8. She was probably in her 80s. And I'm like, hey, friend, like, you know, how was your day? You know, it just, the conversation just seemed so, I don't know, just so natural. And I guess I've always, it was mainly my 2 grandmas, you know, my mom and my dad, but my aunts played a big role in my life as well. And I've always been around people who are older. And so I think that I just kind of gained some of that knowledge and always presented myself in a way. And I don't know, but I definitely appreciate you. Vicky is one of my artist friends that I work side by side with. Right, someone wrote the introduction with Cordelia. Yeah, she's 13, and it's like, that's another thing, watching children grow and just like really explore. Her mom is like super supportive. She plays the piano, she does dance, she is an amazing artist, she's a great student. I think she used to play soccer, I'm not sure. Cordelia's done everything, so I'm gonna have her introduce me. And it was kind of last minute, so I literally was like prompting her yesterday that I had to like chop the video up. But yeah, I just think that it's important for young people to be able to, you know, speak publicly and be able to convey anything that they want to say. Thank you for joining. She's one of my co-residents at my second residency, the one in Baca. That's where I'm at now. So this is my studio space, and I love it. You can see all the light coming in the window. So this is literally where I sit every paint. I'm surrounded by my paintings, so it's peaceful.
Before we close today, any other questions or comments from the audience? There is a lot in the chat about praising you, and a couple of others praising Andrew as well for your multi-talents. Miss Mary said, Miss Mary, you want to tell him what you said on the chat?
Oh, sure. Let me see. I forget what I said. He's very inspiring, and he is so multi-talented and so patient. Oh, I loved hearing him talk, you know, about his work and how he deals with children, because he was like, you know, a child at one time. I mean, he was a child at one time, but he got a lot of encouragement, and this is what he gives his kids, which I think was just wonderful. And it's so nice to see this. My son is a special ed teacher, and he's very artistic. And his daughter is very artistic. This is where I am for the next 2 weeks. So with them.
Awesome.
Laura Studio, I see your hand is up. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I had a question for Connie. It was so interesting when you were showing the second technique where you would draw and then always come back to the same end point. So I used to do that all the time when I was younger. I would just doodle like anytime at school or whenever, I would draw these sort of complex, abstract, with no particular intention, but I would just draw.
Right.
And, I usually would come back and connect at the end, and then I would color them in various ways, all kinds of geometric, whatever, just different things. And so what I want to ask was, I mean, what does that kind of activity actually accomplish? Like, I just sort of did it for fun or to entertain myself, but does it have other?
Well, for me, and I don't say that I'm a medical doctor or anything like that, but I definitely with all age groups, have used it in the classroom when students, maybe they're angry, maybe they're, sad, have anxiety, just different things, anything that kind of impedes the learning process, because I never thought that it was a good idea to have a child who's clearly shutting down for whatever reason. Like, you gotta do the work, like it's the wrong thing. So I use art a lot of times in the classroom. Sometimes they just want to doodle, but I feel like for some of them, when they have purpose, it's kind of like, okay, and I'll show them, I'll model it, and then it kind of creates something that they can do. And like I said, the having to come back to the same point, I think it causes their mind to focus. So the anger, the anxiety, the frustration, whatever is happening, it kind of, it takes your mind off. It's just like adult coloring books. I'm a big kid. I still get toys and different things like that. I love little figurines, but there's this like thing where you have to grow up and stop doing certain things, but coloring is very out, and that's why there's adult coloring books. So I think that does the same thing. And I don't know, like, if you can kind of think back to when you were that age, but you probably were really calm. Like, you probably didn't realize, like, sometimes you were probably drawn to pick that pen or pencil up to do whatever, and it just probably kept you at an even keel. Because I know most artists are not like, I don't know.
I don't think I was I was actually really, really insecure as a child, but I'm just sort of thinking, well, what did that do in my life? I'm just thinking about it as you said, that's like a recommended activity. I can see how it could engage your brain or your emotions in different ways, which is provide a different
outlet. Like, even if you were feeling if you were in class and you were feeling a certain way, you might have turned to art, because I was an only child for a while, and for me, art was like my friend. You know what I mean? It was something to do that kept me entertained as well. And it's like, no, it didn't talk back, but it was, same thing. Well, I shouldn't say the same thing, but it kept me occupied, like having other people around.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. This was good.
I have to agree with Vicki. It keeps you centered. I notice in class, I encourage my students to doodle, because it keeps them there and it keeps them awake. And it goes against what, we were told as children, but some teachers still say, stop scribbling, stop playing with your pen and pencil. But that's not true. You're doodling, but you're retaining everything that's being said. It's keeping you alert. It's keeping you awake. It's not taking you away from listening to what the teacher is saying. And they've all tried it, and it's proven.
Right.
Centered there. Your mind isn't wandering off. There's no daydreaming, right?
Right. And it also could provide an opportunity for a connection, because I know some of my students, I see them with that, I had one student where he had a sketchbook, and I literally was like, look, you can leave the sketchbook out, because he would always like, put it back in his backpack. And I'm like, let me see it. Like, what are you drawing? And then it became a conversation. And then it's like, oh, look what I drew last night. And it just, you could see his personality come out, and I think that sometimes when you have that negative outlook towards that's literally what that child needs. So you're kind of stifling their personality.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation and for the excellent Q&A also here. I also would like to take a second, because I noticed how you involve your family, and that was very touching. So thank you for including mom, kids, friends, neighbors, everybody. That made it extra special. And here in Artivism, we usually close every Artivist session with a key takeaway. What will be your key takeaway for the audience today, right? For action.
Let's see. I feel like several people have already kind of shared their stories of actions that they've taken. So hopefully we just provided reminders, because I'm sure that most of you have made impactful moments in people's lives. So I would just say, keep doing that, and realize that even if you don't get the thank you or the acknowledgement, that the things that you're doing literally help shape the next generation. So, just keep making impactful moments, positive moments. If you, see someone who's receiving some negative energy, offset that with something positive.
Thank you to Professor Agelarakis, to Adelphi University, to Sing for Hope, and also to Teachers College, Columbia University, Gottesman Libraries for being our sponsors. Thank you also, shout out here to Everglades liaison, Vicky Rosenthal, and to all of you down in the in Florida and the other states that have been affected by the weather lately. Thank you for making it in today. You're in our hearts and prayers to everyone in those regions of the United States and across the globe that are experiencing hardship because of the weather patterns changing. Thank you. Professor Archie, any closing statements from you that you'd like to bring on?
Oh, just no, thank you so much. Thank you, Carolina. We make a great team, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary, and everyone else for being here. Vicky, I think, Vicky, you introduced this to Constance.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. If you'd like to get involved to present at ARTIVISM, you can email us at artivism@adelphi.edu. We do have an open call for the spring 2025 poster. You can find all that information on our website. What else? And exhibition, right? Opportunities. Our next exhibition will begin sometime in April and probably go through to September. And if we're still working out the logistics, but Carolina and I think, decided on a postcard. Design a postcard, which would then be mailed to someone, either anonymously or just someplace. So, get involved. It takes, not too much time, and it makes a difference to somebody, to everyone, really. Just connecting, right? That touch, that thought. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening. And hope to see you back soon.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
evening. Bye.
Bye.